Hello there, everyone. It's been a little while, but I'm back. I've got another laptop today I'm going to show you guys. With me right here, I've got a Dell Latitude 5400. It's a mid-range business laptop that launched in around 2019. It's got an 8th generation Intel processor, and I picked it up for 40 bucks at my school surplus store last year, actually. I just saw it and thought it was a good deal, and I've actually hung on to it until now. I finally decided I should probably fix up a Windows laptop because a lot of the other projects I've been doing, I've needed to install Windows, and I've been using Parallels, and I've been having a lot of stability issues with that, with crashes. So I figured it'd be a good time to fix up an old Windows laptop that's modern-ish, and that I'm not doing a current project on, so that I can have to use if I need to use any Windows software, especially Excel. I am a finance guy, so Mac Excel doesn't always work, so it'll be good to have that on this laptop, and also just so I can use it to set anything up for any of my other projects. But like I said, this is a mid-range business laptop from 2019. I got it for 40 bucks, and when I got it, there was no battery, there was no RAM, and there was no storage. So looking back, 40 bucks for that probably wasn't the most amazing deal for a laptop from 2019, but I saw it and it was in really good condition, and I actually got two of them. And I decided I should hold on to it, just see if I ever needed it, and it turns out I do. Anyways, I finally decided I was going to fix it up. Luckily, I did have an SSD and some RAM laying around, so that really meant that the only thing I needed to fix up was the battery. So this was a pretty prime candidate to fix up for cheap and to get in working order. But anyways, in regards to the exterior of the laptop, it's in great condition, as I said. No real extremely visible damage. There's a little bit of a scrape on the top cover, but that wasn't there when I got it. I unfortunately scraped it a little bit when I was taking off the price sticker, but other than that, it's in pretty great condition, no chips or anything, which sometimes you do get with these business laptops. The chassis itself is made out of primarily carbon fiber, which I wouldn't call that a premium material, but it's definitely it's not just plastic, so I definitely wouldn't call it cheap. And on the inside, actually, you do have a little bit of plastic. The chassis surrounding the screen actually does consist of plastic, and on the back panel on the bottom. So it is primarily carbon fiber, but there are some plastic parts which I do get. Sometimes you want to replace the back panel, and it is easier to access when it's made out of plastic. Same thing with the laptops, or the display panel on the front. If you ever need to work on this display, you're going to want it to be made out of something pretty easy to get off, which carbon fiber, I'm not going to say it's going to be difficult, but it's going to be a lot harder to do. You might be more prone to breaking something, so that does make sense. But let's talk about the actual I/O ports now. It's pretty simple for a business laptop. It's nothing crazy like the Precisions I've been looking at. On the left side, if it was facing me, you've got your standard Dell power adapter port. It's pretty standard. I believe it accepts AC adapters as low as 65 watts, depending on the configuration. But again, I don't have one of those laying around. So what I'm going to be using is the 240 watt adapter I've been using for the Precision, because that one's kind of a one-size-fits-all. No machine's going to refuse to take that. But it does accept adapters with that little wattage, which should probably tell you that this is a pretty low power system in terms of its power impact. Right next to it, you've got a USB 3.1 Gen 2 port, which is the USB-C form factor. It also has support for Thunderbolt 3, maybe 4. I'm not sure on the exact Thunderbolt specification. It just says Thunderbolt on the Dell website. And also mini DisplayPort. The Thunderbolt supports speeds up to 40 gigabits per second, so yeah, I do believe that is Thunderbolt 3. Next to it, you have just your standard USB 3.1 Gen 1 port, which, again, that's just an updated version of USB 3A. USB 3 Type A. And then on the other side, you have a smart card port, which that was optional, and so was the Thunderbolt support for the USB-C. I forgot to mention that. But yeah, the smart card port was optional. I definitely don't need to use it. It's a security feature that universities, companies like to use. I obviously don't need it, but it is there. Going over to the other side, you've got a lot more I/O, or I don't want to say a lot, but you've got a few more other options. You've got, starting from the left, you've got a micro SD slot, nothing extreme, or not a full-size one, but that's fine. Below that, you have a SIM card slot, which is pretty unusual to see on a laptop. I would say it's getting a little bit more common, but it's still somewhat unusual. You've got your combination microphone headphone jack, two more USB 3.1 Gen A ports, which I believe that one of them supports PowerShare. Yep, I'll show a close-up in the other footage, but you can see there's a battery symbol next to it, which means that it does indeed support PowerShare, which what that means is if this laptop was closed or if it was off, I don't think if it was completely powered off, but it was just closed and in sleep mode, you could do something like charge a phone or connect it to a device. So that's cool to have. Next to it, you've got an HDMI port. I looked into what kind of HDMI port this was. Both the reviews and the Dell website didn't say, it just said HDMI port. And then next to it, you've got an Ethernet port, which is in kind of rough shape. Again, I'll show a close-up where you can see the piece that comes out, so it becomes a full-size Ethernet port. Is a little bit crooked, but I did try to put an Ethernet cord in there, and it did detect it, so I believe it's working. And then obviously right next to it, you do have a lock slot, which Dell referred to it as a wedge-shaped lock slot, so it's not a Kensington one, so I guess it's a little bit unusual, or not unusual, I guess just a new form factor compared to what I've seen in the past. But that's the I/O. If we look under the hood, which I'll show you some shots of that, you've got a few, I don't want to say interesting things, it's pretty standard for a business laptop. You've got your two DDR4 SODIMM slots. Any memory in the system is going to operate at 2400 megahertz. I thought it might have worked at 2667, but from what I read, it can accept memory that's up to 2677 megahertz, but it will operate at 2400 megahertz. Not sure why, but that's just what I read. Obviously, you've also got your Wi-Fi card slot and your WWAN slot. The GPU and the CPU are soldered on this machine, so they're not visible. They're somewhere below the fan. Maybe they're on the other side of the motherboard. I'm not 100% sure. And actually, there is no dedicated GPU in this machine, so it's all on one chip. But you can't see them right here, but obviously they are there. There is a third-party battery. You can probably see it looks a little bootleg. I did install a third-party battery. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a little bit. And then over here, where I'm probably circling my finger, on the left side you can see that there is an M.2 NVMe drive coming across, and depending on the configuration of this machine, if you bought it with a 2.5-inch SATA drive, it would come with a cable to plug that in. But I did not do that, so the cable is not here. But if you buy the cable, you can use a 2.5-inch SATA drive on this laptop, just not at the same time with a NVMe drive, because there's just no space, or an M.2 drive, so there's no space there, which I don't need that. I don't really think you should be using SATA these days for anything other than data storage unless you have a really dire need. So, no real complaints there. Anyways, now that we've shown a little bit under the hood, before we get this thing started up, I'm going to open it up and we're going to talk a little bit more about the inside. I guess an interesting thing to mention now that I'm opening it up is that this hinge, which it's in great shape by the way, opens all the way. So we got a 100-degree angle right here, which I don't want to say is rare, but it's a bit uncommon for laptops, especially business laptops. That's a cool thing to see. But anyway, I'll show you this side. The display on here is a 1920 by 1080 non-touch display. It's got pretty nice colors. I'll show you guys in a little bit. There was also a 1366 by 768 display option that was in the base model, and then there was one configuration higher where you could get the same display as this one, or maybe not the same display, but the same resolution, and it was touch supported. I don't have that, but there are configurations that do support that. But anyway, let's talk about the keyboard. It's just the standard, I don't know if there's a name for it, but it's just the standard Dell keyboard you'd see on most of their business laptops and most of their non-premium laptops in general during this time. It is backlit. There are two levels if you don't include off, so there's off, dim, and bright, essentially. In the middle, you've got this little well, it's not a track point, but it resembles the classic ThinkPad track point. That is there. It does work. I tested it out. Over at the power button right here, this model does not, or this specific configuration does not have a fingerprint sensor, but I have seen pictures online of this unit with a fingerprint sensor, so maybe if you come across one of these in the wild, you might find it with a fingerprint sensor, but that's not what I have. Going down to the touchpad, again, standard Dell touchpad, it works fine. You've got the two standard buttons. Then up here, I've never known what these are for. You've got the alternative touchpad buttons with the middle button too, which is a little cool. Never had to use it, but it is there. I assume that might be there if you're using the track point, so you can do something like this. I'm not sure, but it is there. That's cool. But anyway, we should probably move on to the specs now. I will turn this thing on, and you might see it might take a minute. Should have some battery power. Oh, maybe not. Alright, so I plugged this thing into the charger. It's got the big beefy 240 watt adapter I was talking about. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to open this thing up. We're going to boot it up and I can show you what exactly is inside this thing. But before I do that, one thing I forgot to mention is the webcam up here. I don't remember the exact resolution, so I'll have to flash that on the screen when I'm editing. But something interesting about it is that it does have a privacy shield. Which those are becoming more commonplace on business laptops, but I wouldn't really consider them the standard. Not then, not now. But it's a nice thing to have. You can move it back and forth. It's cool to see. And this webcam does support Windows Hello, which I will show you when I boot this thing up. But first, what we're going to do is we're going to go into the BIOS, because that's where it's really easy to show you the specs. So I'm turning it on now. So hopefully it actually boots into the BIOS, which it looks like it's about to. Yeah, there we go. So yeah, booted up into the BIOS. It's the standard Dell BIOS. It's been replaced in recent years on their newer machines, but this is the standard BIOS they were using for, I want to say, almost 10 years, maybe more. But what I'll do is I'll go down into System Information, and as you can see, starting from the top, you've got you got the service tag right there. But as you can see, this machine was manufactured in July of 2019, and the school, that's who I bought it from, bought it about a month later. So this machine was bought in 2019, and I did plug in the service tag online, and I could see that the warranty expired in late 2023. And considering the fact that I bought this machine in early 2024 and kind of just let it sit around for a while, my guess is that the university kind of just tossed these once the warranty was up, which is pretty standard for big companies, major organizations like a university. So that's what I suspect the reason is for them getting rid of it. But anyways, moving on from that, the memory is listed at the top. This has 16 gigabytes of DDR4 2400 megahertz memory. As I mentioned earlier, no matter if you put a speed higher than 2400 megahertz in here, it's going to run at 2400 megahertz. But that's dual channel, so there's two 8 gigabyte sticks. You could probably see that when I was showing what was under the hood, but obviously it's reflected here, nowhere it's being detected. Moving down to the processor, it has a Core i5-8365U, which that name is a bit of a mouthful, or I guess not as much as the newer generations, but still. So that is a hyper-threaded quad-core. This was the first generation where Intel made the leap from made the leap in their core count. So the processors that would have been hyper-threaded dual cores in previous generations, which a processor like this probably would have been, became hyper-threaded quad cores, because this is actually only a 15-watt processor. And if my memory does serve me correctly, all of the processors that were supported with this computer were 15 watt. That's the U at the end of the processor name means that it's low power. So obviously it was a big jump seeing the low-powered CPUs, the power-efficient CPUs, jump from 2 cores to 4, which 4 cores is still sufficient for a lot of stuff, especially if it's hyper-threaded. I know there's been a switch away from hyper-threading, especially these days. There's a lot of emphasis on efficiency cores and performance cores, but still, they're still useful to have. But anyway, the base clock is only 1.6 gigahertz, which is pretty low. Probably a side effect of the fact that, again, they were still using the 14 nanometer process, and they jumped right up to, or they increased the core count without jumping up to a more efficient, a more powerful process node. So they had to compromise somewhere, and that was the base clock speed because of thermals, I would assume. But it does turbo boost up to 4.1 gigahertz, so it's got a low base clock, but it can turbo up there, so it's not terrible. Moving down, we have the SSD is recognized, 500 gigabytes. I did pull that from my parts I'm stuttering. From my parts stockpile, which I did that with my RAM as well. So those two additions were free. That's kind of what drove me to fix up this machine instead of buying or fixing up another one. And the GPU, the video controller, is listed right here. It's just listed as Intel UHD graphics. I believe that was UHD 620 was the integrated GPU that is supported, or that was bundled with this GPU. And something interesting I found online is that this, or at least the configuration with this CPU that I have, was supposed to include, or at least the manual makes it look like all configurations with this CPU are supposed to come with a AMD Radeon 540X with 2 gigabytes of VRAM. But this configuration obviously doesn't have that. I don't know if maybe they re-released the system and they all had dedicated GPUs. I'm not sure, but that's just something interesting I found, and it's not in this one, so I just thought that'd be interesting to mention. And then obviously you've got it's just recognizing the screen. It's a 14-inch Full HD display, which is nice. It seems like 14-inch laptops have kind of replaced the previous 13-inch ones, and this is around the start of that. Granted, this isn't 16 by 10, and there has been a shift back towards 16 by 10, so I'm assuming this is one of their transition models where they were beginning to do that. But the 14-inch display is nice. It's that sweet spot where it's, it's still on a machine that's portable enough, but it's not tiny, which I do enjoy. But those are the basic overall specs. I'll move on to the battery, which is a little interesting. As you can see right now, okay, it's saying it has 14% charge. When I plugged it in before I started filming this segment, it said it only had 4, so it is charging. Yeah, it just bumped up to 15 as I'm speaking, or as I'm saying this. The B-roll will probably show something else. Something interesting I found about, or I noticed about this battery, or not interesting, was unfortunate actually, was when I first got it, I didn't actually put it in this machine for a month because I had to get this, because I left this here when I traveled home for Christmas. But when I came back, I was able to put the battery in, and unfortunately my return period had elapsed, which is unfortunate because I would plug in the battery, it was holding a charge. If I took out the power adapter, it was fine. What was interesting was that it wouldn't charge. So that was unfortunate because I thought, okay, I can just return it, but the return period had elapsed, so I was stuck with what I believed was a dud battery, but it seems to be charging more normally now. I'm not sure if that's going to stick. I'll have to see. But I was a little worried, so it's, that's the risk you take with a third-party battery. But as of now, it is working, which is pretty cool. But now that I've shown you the basic specs of the machine, or I've told them to you, I'm going to log into Windows real quick. I'm going to show you Windows Hello, which this should go really quick. It's got a 500 gigabyte NVMe SSD in it, which I used to use that in my old computer years ago. I believe the read and writes are around 3,000 megabytes per second, so it's not slow, but it's not one of the super fast modern NVMe SSDs. But yep, as you can see right now, it's booting up, and actually the bottom of the laptop actually feels pretty warm, which is kind of surprising for just sitting in the BIOS. But as you can see, it's looking for me right there. I'm going to aim it towards my face. You got to get the distance right, and yep, there we go. It's logging in right away, and you can see me right there. As you can see, this has Windows 11 on it. It did ship with Windows 10 because it came out in 2019. Windows 11 wasn't out yet, but it does have official driver support for Windows 11, and it obviously works on the operating system because it is using an 8th generation processor, which was I believe that's the oldest mobile processor generation that does support Windows 11. There are a few exceptions. I believe there's 2 7th generation mobile Intel processors that do support Windows 11, but that's more of an exception than a rule. But now that we're in here, we can see it's just a laptop with Windows 11 on it. It's, like I said, it's just a pretty unremarkable business laptop, but it does get the job done. Everything runs well on here. As we can see, yeah, the battery does appear to be charging. That's great news, because that's been a little inconsistent, so it's good to see that that's charging. But yeah, I got Windows 11 on it. Obviously, I've got a few basic applications. You know, I just got Firefox, Chrome, OBS if I need to record anything, and just basic day-to-day applications. Again, I just have this, or I got this set up essentially so that if I need to do another project, or if I need to do something in the Windows version of Microsoft Excel, I can do that pretty easily. I just wanted something that wasn't too old. Like, I didn't want to put it on that precision that I have that, yeah, I could handle it easily, but it's a little bit too clunky, and if I ever need to bring this out and about, or I need to bring a Windows laptop out and about, I don't want to be bringing a Dell Precision that weighs 8 pounds. That's just a little excessive. So I got this set up, and it's, you know, most of the time it's probably just going to sit in my my little laptop reserve, so to speak. But if I ever need to do anything with Windows, or whenever I'm doing anything on one of my projects, which hopefully will be pretty often, I'll be using this. So not much to say about it right now, but I just figured, because I got it set up, I fixed this thing up, I might as well give another little overview, tell you guys what I did with it, what I'm planning to do with it, and yeah, I'll see you guys next time. Maybe you guys will see me doing something with this laptop. Have a nice day.